I got a question. What about black racism, black bigotry, and black anti-Semitism? I mean, it's an article of faith that Donald Trump is a racist, right?
References to Donald Trump as a racist slowly increased over time, but they were always met with challenges. How do you know he's a racist? And the American news media has gone through years now of hair splitting on the difference between saying something racist and being a racist, as if there is a difference.
The morality issue. This is about whether or not you will continue to vote for and support a president who is a racist, who is a misogynist,
who's killing the environment,
who is killing the environment, who is putting children in cages, who is separating families, who is dividing our country. If you are going to vote for that person and you are not going to speak out against racism, you are complicit in what he is doing to this country, period.
And of course, blacks are oppressed by systemic racism, institutional racism, structural racism, and former presidential Democrat candidate Beto O'Rourke gave us a brand new one.
Racism in America is endemic. It is foundational.
Foundational racism, damn. Now, what about black racism, black bigotry, and black anti-Semitism?
You must be out of your goddamn mind.
Really? What do you call this?
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice.
You know, I can't find the word. I'm looking for the word. I found the word. The word is bigotry. Never mind what Barack Obama once said about being black.
One of the great changes that's occurred in our country since I was your age is the realization there's no one way to be black. I take it from somebody who's seen both sides of the debate about whether I'm black or not.
Now, about black racism, a Rasmussen poll asked blacks, whites, and Hispanics, of these three groups, which is the most racist? 37% of American adults think most black Americans are racist. Just 15% consider most white Americans racist, while 18% say the same of Hispanic Americans. Among black Americans, 31% think most blacks are racist, 24% consider most whites racist, 15% view most Hispanics that way. Among white adults, 10% think most whites are racist, 38% believe most blacks are racist, and 17% say most Hispanics are racist. End of quote. In other words, more whites think blacks are racist than they think whites are racist, than they think Hispanics are racist. Among Hispanics, more Hispanics think blacks are racist than believe whites are racist or believe blacks are racist. Among blacks, more blacks believe blacks are racist than they believe Hispanics are racist or whites are racist. What does that tell you? Now get this. A 1999 article in the LA Times talked about how Hispanic landlords were discriminating against would-be black tenants, and how black landlords were discriminating against would-be Hispanic tenants. Two recent studies of rental practices found that Latino landlords are discriminating against African Americans and black landlords are discriminating against Latinos at levels comparable to those practiced by whites against minority groups a decade ago. End of quote. Now, what about black versus white and white versus black violent crime? Heather McDonald, a researcher at the Manhattan Institute. In 2018, there were 593,598 interracial violent victimizations, excluding homicides, between blacks and whites last year. Blacks committed 537,204 of these interracial felonies, or 90%, and whites committed 56,394 of them, or less than 10%. End of quote. Now, what about hate crime? It certainly is true that blacks at 13% of the population and at 28% of the victims are disproportionately likely to be a victim of a hate crime. But it is also true that blacks at 13% of the population are disproportionately more likely to commit a hate crime. Blacks are overrepresented among perpetrators of hate crime by 50% according to the most recent DOJ data from 2017. Whites are underrepresented by 24%. This is particularly true for anti-gay and anti-Semitic hate crimes, end of quote. And the American Enterprise Institute notes, the hate crime victimization rates in 2018 per 100,000 population of each group was as follows: 14.8 for Jews, 6.6 for Muslims, 5.5 for blacks. Adjusted for population by group, American Jews were 2.7 times more likely than blacks to be a victim of a hate crime last year, and more than twice as likely than a Muslim to be a hate crime victim, end of quote. Again, speaking of bigotry, did you know that black opposition to black-white marriages is actually slightly higher than white opposition to black-white marriages? 17% of white respondents felt interracial marriage was morally wrong, compared with 18% of black respondents and 15% of Hispanic respondents, end of quote. Speaking of opposition to black-white interracial marriages, in 1995 here in California, a black man named Ward Connerly led the fight to get rid of race-based preferences in the areas of hiring, contracting, and college admissions. One of his detractors is a woman named Diane Watson, also black. She was a state lawmaker in California. Here's what she said. He's married to a white woman. He wants to be white. He wants a colorless society. He has no ethnic pride. He doesn't want to be black, end of quote. Holy David Duke. By the way, does that apply to CNN's Don Lemon and CNN's Van Jones, both of whom are married to whites? That's right. The left-wing Van Jones is married to a white woman, and the left-wing Don Lemon is married to a white man. Now, on to black anti-Semitism.
So when they talk about Farrakhan, call me a hater, you know what they do? Call me an anti-Semite. Stop it. I'm anti-termite.
So he'll talk to 5 years from now when he's lamed up, or 8 years when he's out of office. And the Jewish vote, the AIPAC vote, that's controlling him, that will not let him send a representation to the Darfur Review Conference, that's talking this craziness in Israel because they're Zionists. They will not let him talk to somebody who calls the spade what it is. Ethnic cleansing that's going on in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing of the Zionists is a sin and a crime against humanity.
And Alan Dershowitz, a longtime Democrat, has publicly said, had he known about this photograph with Barack Obama and Minister Farrakhan, he would not have voted for Obama in 2008. But no, let's not talk about black bigotry. Now, LeBron James, like a lot of young blacks, grew up in the inner city. And he says that when he grew up, he disliked whites because he assumed whites disliked blacks.
Ron, you can speak that because first time you were around all white people when you came to high school.
Yeah, yeah. I went to an all-white high school, Catholic high school. So, like when I first went to the 9th grade in the high school, I was on some like, I'm not white people.
Right.
Like, cause I was so institutionalized growing up in the hood, it's like they don't with us. They don't want us to succeed. The hierarchy, and then we're here. Like, matter of fact, we're underneath this chair. So I'm like, I'm going to this school to play ball, and that's it. I don't want nothing to do with white people. I don't believe that they want anything to do with I don't want no, it's me and my boys, we going to high school together and we here to hoop. So that was like my initial like thoughts and my initial shock to like white America when I was 14 years old for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
So,
and that's Catholic school, which is even whiter America. I don't know if you knew that. There are levels to white America.
It took me a little while
right.
to kind of adjust to it.
Talk about stereotyping. He thought all whites disliked all blacks. How about this? How about taking responsibility for yourself in the year 2020? How about standing up for your own actions? How about being a man?
You're my father. I'm your son. I love you. I always have, and I always will. But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.